So the water system that Yukon had prior to the well system was shallow wells in the alluvium for the Canadian River. Had problems with contamination in the water there, so they looked for a different water source, and that water source was around the airport properties. So Yukon has entered into long-term agreements with the airport trust on water rights for wells that are going into the Garber Wellington. So deep wells are, of course, in the 700 feet plus for the Garber Wellington. And the reason they're away from the city of Yukon, the quality of the water in the Garber Wellington gets worse the farther west you go. So we're seeing cities that have wells in the Garber Wellington that are west of the airport having either problems with saltwater intrusion or arsenic level problems. So again, the water was high quality back in the day, back in the 70s. As we all recognize, DEQ continually comes out with revisions to water quality. So they revised the arsenic levels 20 years or plus ago. So then we started looking at what to do for the well fields on what to do with the water. So the city of Yukon has 15 wells around the airport. And again, the airport's in the city limits of Oklahoma City. The transmission line we have after well 1 is a 24-inch line. And from there, the 24-inch line goes in the statutory right-of-way, which is approximately center line of the road to 33 feet. Anything that goes beyond that, when a developer comes in, as Yukon does, they go ahead and require an additional 17 feet, so you have a total width of 50 feet for your right-of-way on one side. This was developed, the pipeline was developed when there was no development out there, so the water line was put in the statutory right-of-way. And it was put to the outside edge of the statutory right-of-way. Booster station number 22 was the last booster station that was constructed, and it's just beyond well number 1. And booster station 22 was constructed in 1999. So when we started talking about the issues with arsenic, we started talking about trying to have water that we could blend to take care of that. And then also Oklahoma City has different zones, and the zone that we were drawing water from under peak times, we'd have hard times meeting the demand of Yukon under those peak times. So Oklahoma City and Yukon jointly built Booster Station 22 to try to take care of the demand issues, and then also to go ahead and have a blending location so we comply with ODEQ on arsenic levels. So this is a general map of the well field, the wells, and Booster Station 22. And as you can see, it goes around the east side of the airport, picking up each of the wells until we get onto 29th Street, and we pick up the last 2 wells, which is wells number 1 and 2. Well, as I said, Booster Station 22 is just beyond well number 1. And then we have the 24-inch line that goes ahead and follows 29th Street, excuse me, and then it goes ahead and makes its turn north on Check Hall Road till we get to the city limits of Yukon. So blown up a little bit more, you can kind of see how this weaves through there. You can see at well number 4, we weave around where 152 was constructed and improved. You can see how we weave back to pick up wells number 3, number 2, and then back to number 1. And with this, you can also see that Oklahoma City is starting to experience growth, especially along 29th Street and a little bit on Check Hall. So as Oklahoma City is identifying improvements to this area, they're changing from a 2-lane rural section, which means no curb and gutter, no storm sewer, and just an open bar ditch on the end, to a 4-lane section, curb and gutter, and storm sewer. So when they go ahead and start making these improvements, we have conflicts with our existing water line with some of the storm sewer that they're proposing. So that necessitates us doing some slight movements to that pipeline. So when we're talking about slight movements to a pipeline, it's still rather expensive when you look at what those improvements are. So again, this is looking at the 3 projects that we're focused on right now. We recognize that we'll continually have improvements going through this corridor. When we are presented the plans for us to evaluate the impacts to the storm sewer on our water line. On some instances, we're able to have the storm sewer redesigned so it doesn't impact the water line. So again, we go ahead and do everything we can to minimize the cost to Yukon when we're reviewing the plans that Oklahoma City gives us. And if you guys have any questions, just ask at any time.
Yeah, the reason for the movement of this pipeline is for what reason? Because they want to, they need more water than we do?
The reason for us to move the water line is because they're trying to widen the street.
Right.
So they're putting in a storm sewer, and so they're putting a pipe underground. And for the pipe underground for a storm sewer, it's gravity flow. So it's critical that they hit a flow line for the ditch. So a lot of times that flow line that they're trying to hit for gravity flow may be in conflict with the water line we have. Now, we can relocate the water line since it's pressurized flow.
What about this water line that goes from 29th all the way to Czech Hall? Are they going to do any openings because of all that new housing going into Mustang?
So what we're seeing is growth in a couple areas. We're seeing it in housing and we're seeing it in industrial also.
So,
yeah. So as you recognize, this whole corridor's changed dramatically in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
The turnpikes come in, Hobby Lobbies come in. A lot of people want to move into the Mustang school system. Can't understand why when we have Yukon, such a great one here.
Absolutely.
But we're seeing a phenomenal amount of growth going in right now. So with that growth, we're having to look at these improvements, and we're trying to coordinate as much as we can with Oklahoma City so we have at least some advance notice as compared to we need you to move this in 6 months. So we're trying to be on the front end side, being a little bit proactive, trying to identify the projects.
Do you anticipate any water shortages based on the fact that they're going to be opening these lines and moving them?
No. So pretty much as we've done on other water line lowerings, we go ahead and time the construction of that so we don't have any interruption to the water service. And again, a lot of these transfers are rather quick transfers.
All right.
So to kind of have a detail of what it really looks like, what we're doing, when I said that the storm sewer is gravity flow, so it's critical for them to meet that slope going into an existing ditch. So they're pretty much controlled on what the surface is, on what those facilities are going to look like. So on this one, you can see, just like when you see an inlet on a curb and gutter section, the inlet goes down, gets collected in a storm sewer pipe, and then it's piped into a creek system. That's where we're having our conflicts, in that piping system for that storm sewer for the water that's coming off the street. So a typical detail like this is their storm sewer is in conflict with the water line, and we're having to lower the water line at a small location to go ahead and miss them on their storm sewer. So some of the things we try to do is, can we go ahead and change where the main trunk system for that storm sewer is to the other side of the road, so where it's not in conflict with our water line, trying to get it pushed on the other side of the road. And Robbie goes ahead and coordinates all those services for us, and he's been very successful in getting some of that done on some of these locations. Some of them, we just can't. So we do have a conflict and we have to move. Part of the agreement with Oklahoma City and the city of Yukon was that we would bear the cost of doing utility lowerings in the right-of-way. Pretty much like we have with our franchise agreements for utilities that are located within our right-of-way, that if there's a cost for relocation cost, it's borne by the utility company within our right-of-way.
So who bears the cost of this construction now?
The city of Yukon will bear the cost because we're in Oklahoma City right-of-way. So you have to understand also, with us putting the pipeline there, there was no cost associated with us putting the pipeline in the right-of-way. So instead of going out and buying miles of right-of-way, it was placed into the easement, or the right-of-way. And again, we were looking at trying to set it as far to that 33 foot as we could to construct this.
Yeah.
And again,
my next question would be, do we have the funds to make this happen?
and I think that's what we're doing in the presentation right now.
Okay. Geez, 720.
So Again, if there's any questions on these details, just ask away.
I was curious on the cost projection. Is that at like today's price, or if we have to do it 6 months from now, or
That's on today's costs, yeah.
so probably at least another 10% if we wait. I mean, at today's inflation rates.
Yeah, a lot of this is on our bid contract price.
Okay.
So we have a little bit of a lock-in on our price on a lot of this work.
Okay.
Now, if the city of Yukon decides they want to go ahead and do a different route, then you're right. We're at the mercy of the market.
But we also don't want to wait until the last minute when they go, oh, we're changing this and we can't get the materials.
So as you recall, there's been an issue with some valves on Buy America for the state projects and federally funded projects. And again, that has been an issue on those types of projects. So I believe ONG's had an issue trying to get some of their valves on the State Highway 4 project. But again, we're not looking at this on this project. This is a city-funded project.
Right.
And really, the need outweighs the Buy America, I would recommend.
Do we have any idea on the timeline as far as when it's going to have to be done?
So some of these are different dates because they're different types of projects. So Robbie, you probably had the dates on the projects.
Yes, they wanna bid these projects, first one towards the end of the year, and then, the one on 29th between MacArthur. Spring of, 2023, so we have a little time.
So a lot of times on the bidding, it's dependent on when the utilities are relocated. So again, while they're identifying schedules that they're trying to get these things constructed, a lot of it's dependent not only on us moving the water line, but for the other utilities to be moved in the corridor. But again, relatively quick time frame. One of the projects is off a few years though.
Yeah, the first one that needs to be done is the one at Southwest 15th and Check Hall Road, and there's only 2 lowerings there. So that's the first one that needs to be done.
That's the one that needs to be by end of year.
Yes. And then 29th between MacArthur and Rockwell is in 2023.
And then the 29th west of Morgan Road.
That one will probably come later. That one could actually come quicker. It's a smaller project,
It's just
and it
one
just has
lowering.
one lowering. And on that one, we coordinated. Originally, we were going to have to relocate 200 feet of our water line, but we coordinated with them, and we just have to do one lowering.
Well, there's not really another option, is there?
No, ma'am. I was looking back, I'm sorry. So this kind of goes ahead and identifies how many lowerings there are. But part of our agreement with the city of Oklahoma City for us being placed in their statutory right-of-way was when they make a demand, we need to go ahead and take care of our water line. That's part of our responsibility for being in their easement.
Right.
Excuse, I should say statutory right-of-way, I apologize.
Is there I mean, I'm a bit ignorant here on this. So what I'm thinking, is there a way to, I mean, eventually the whole line will have to be moved. Would you guess that within the next 50 years or so?
So that's a good question. So what's been happening now with the line, we are having to make some lowerings, but again, where the location, where it is, it's outside the curb line, where a lot of the widening's doing. We're getting into the storms here on the backside of the curb. So we can be there for a while. And what Yukon has done is when we have leaks with the pipeline, we're replacing sections at a time as opposed to replacing the entire line.
So one thing I'm considering is that this council's been in a position to where there are things that should have been dealt with 20 or 30 years ago or 40 years ago that weren't, and now we've got an unbelievable amount of infrastructure in various locations that need to be replaced or repaired. Is there a way we can prevent that issue happening in this particular area to where we can basically just plan every year for the next 10 years, we're going to spend X number of dollars on lowering, whether OKC's insisting on it or not, because it's coming.
So you bring up a really good point. This corridor had been really sleepy for the past 25 years, and now it's starting to grow exponentially. So that's why we've been trying to coordinate more with Oklahoma City to understand what their long-term goals are, so we can at least start identifying the projects, as opposed to, we're getting ready to do this project in a year and a half, we need these utilities moved. So we're trying to coordinate and identify that, and that's why we're here tonight, trying to give you a long-term view of what we see today. And again, we're trying to continually coordinate with Oklahoma City to get the information as early as we can, hopefully a few years out, so we can understand what their CIP program is, and then try to go ahead and set budgets for those improvements,
So this will take us through a while,
as we understand today.
because we can't predict what the future's gonna hold and what new changes Oklahoma City's gonna make.
Yes, ma'am.
Are they pretty forthcoming with what their intentions are? Or are they?
They are, but here's what happens. We all recognize that improvements are based on growth, and they've been trying to project that growth. This area is probably a unique area for Oklahoma City, the way it's grown, and I don't think we're telling you guys anything you haven't seen out there. So a lot of the driving factors that they see is the amount of traffic that they're seeing, and with that, they continually develop these plans. So eventually, are we going to see 4 lanes all the way through? Yes. Can they tell us what year they anticipate that? No, because they're like any other municipality. They're trying to be cognizant of the funds they actually have for street improvements. So the best we can try to do is get their CIP improvement program, and then identify the projects that are going to be in this corridor. And then at that time, they still haven't even probably hired an engineer to do the design work, so we don't even know what the storm sewer is going to look like. So at that time, we're just guesstimating how many lowerings we're going to need.
They're not gonna cut into this pipe that goes into Yukon to take water and send it someplace else, correct?
No, it's,
Okay.
the pipeline is the city of Yukon's pipeline.
Okay.
And to kind of go along with that, it's metered right at booster station 22. So we know how much water is coming out of the well field, and we know how much water gets delivered to Oklahoma City.
Kimmy, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, I do. Council members, I would like to let you know, as you do know, this was not budgeted. We did not know about this last year at the time we were preparing the budget. The only thing that we can use the money for is if we take it out of the ARPA funds, which we had planned to use that to replace water and sewer lines. But since this was unplanned and that's the only money that we could use, you know, that it will qualify because replacing water and sewer lines or lowerings, it has anything to do with our infrastructure for water and sewer, then we can use this money for that.
We got 4.3 million in ARPA,
Yes, but we've only gotten half of it so
Right.
far.
but some of these don't have to be done until the spring of 2023.
Correct.
So that would still leave us with 3-point-something million.
Yes, ma'am. That would be my recommendation to you all.
This is like when you get your income taxes, but your roof needs to be replaced.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, anybody else have any more questions?
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we will recess and reconvene at 7 o'clock.